I appreciate being here and taking a few minutes. When Cody asked about this, in his email said, come up with some strategies or tips that could be beneficial. And I thought, and I really did put my best thinking into it of like, what could I share that would be really helpful to you? And there's so much. So I picked a few things. And honestly, so much when I say initially has already been said, okay? But I commend you for taking this opportunity and to work with this population. It's magnificent. And it does come with some challenges for sure. It requires a lot more patience. There's more liability involved. I mean, the focus is pretty intense when you have to be so mindful of people walking across your facility floor in case they stumble or trip or just getting up. With young people, it's easy. You just let them do it, right? So there's some challenges, but it's a great market. I've really enjoyed it over the years. So I want to kind of go through this first part a little more quickly since we have covered it already. But the three things I want to cover is, what do you believe? Why do you do what you do? And I want to give you three practical movements to enhance motor control, to really get good feedback or good kind of what Phil said earlier about getting the cotton out of the ears so they can hear the music. And then a case study to kind of implement these items I'll be covering. So, I think you've all seen that Simon Sinek YouTube TED Talk, or TED Talk on YouTube. And, what is your why statement? And I think that's really important. Why are you doing what you're doing? And to really get in touch with that. And if you don't have that, that's okay, because that's part of the process anyway. And that's a good place to be in as well. But it provides you with clarity, it provides you with direction. And then he also said, people don't buy what you do, but why you do it. And they're not going to come to you for what you do, or what you have, or what your gym's like, but why you do it. And I think that's really important. My why statement from early on was to, I don't know how many years ago it was, 25 years ago, I just couldn't buy into the fact of what I saw with aging. The poor posture and the poor walking and the frailty. It just didn't make sense to me. And I was just pondering this question, and I went to visit my uncle in a nursing home. And when I walked in, I had this idea. This thing came over my mind. I was like, what would happen if these frail older adults in this nursing home engaged in strength training, 80% of 1RM? Hadn't really been done. I thought, well, it'd either kill them or make them better. But that's what really started to fascinate me. And so I went and got a graduate degree in gerontology, and I went and did an internship at Tufts University. And I was there a year after they did that study in 1994. It was that landmark study I'm sure you all have heard about, where they took 100 subjects, average age 87, and they all had all kinds of chronic conditions. And they did, 80% of 1RM, 110% increase in strength, 28% increase in ability to climb stairs, and improve their walking speed half mile an hour. I mean, that's amazing. And that was a big paradigm shift, huge. So I played that U2 song because it has that phrase, you're stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. And when your clients come into you and they've had, decades and decades, well, not decades, decades and decades of inactivity, they're pretty much stuck. It's like what Phil said earlier, or even Cody said it, that, if you're adding strength to dysfunctional movement, or they're just always in this dysfunctional movement pattern. It's like pushing save all the time. But they're also stuck in what's being reminded in society about aging. And I think we need to really shift the paradigm on, our belief system and create a new belief of what aging can be. Just like the Tufts research group changed that paradigm on the physical part of it, I think that's really going to be our next kind of step is, really looking at what our beliefs, creating a new, new belief system about aging. I think that's really important. Because they're gonna, they'll come to you. Your clients will come to you, and they just have no idea, and they don't know what the possibilities are. And so, if you hold that place, or you start to open those possibilities up to them, or just start to have them question, it really changes. So you try something when you're with a new prospective client or somebody who's joining or thinking about joining. Have them ask the question, "What are the possibilities? What's possible for you?" Because all they know is they go to their lunch groups and they go to their dinner clubs and their book clubs, and they just talk about, my knee hurts, or I've got to have this procedure, and and I got to get a colonoscopy, and you know what you call that, right? An organ recital, right? But that's their mindset. And they don't think otherwise. And they just don't know what it feels like to have a body that functions really well, or better than it does. So, where I want to go now is to these 5 fundamental movement patterns. And Dan John really gets a lot of credit for doing this. He's a really, probably one of the best strength coaches, and has done a lot for the industry. And luckily he's 15 minutes from my facility, and we're privileged to be able to go down to his gym. In Men's Health about 2 years ago, they on the cover it said "Secrets from America's Top Gym," and you open it up and there's this picture of a garage, and it's Dan John's garage. There's nothing fancy about it. You go there, if you're ever in Salt Lake, you're more than welcome. It's 9:30 every weekday, and he pulls out the cars and goes at it. But it's a real think tank, and it's really enhanced the way I do things now. I've been working with him for about 3 years, but with kind of what I've been doing with the aging over the last so many years, and then having access to that, it's really enhanced what we're doing at Age Performance. But there's this, it's pretty simple. You're programming. I think we overthink a lot of things, and we overanalyze, but it's really just the push, the pull, the hinge, the squat, the carry. These movements that we do every day in life. You do them, our older clients do them. That's all we're trying to do. That's all we're trying to improve. Are those movements. Improve the mobility first, and then let's add strength to them. But I have the hinge and the squat highlighted there because it's easy it's easier to work on the pull, it's easier to work on the push, and carries are incredibly easy. They're self-correcting in themselves. But the hinge of the squat are more challenging, right, to teach and get our clients to do, but they're just super important that we work on these movements. So, I want to go through these movement patterns, or just 3 of these exercises: the 6-point rock, the TRX squat, and butt backs. So. Every one of our clients, I don't care how functional they are or how dysfunctional they are in their movements, we have everyone go through these. It's a great warm-up, or it may be just a great workout for those that are really dysfunctional. But a 6-point rock is simply, that's why I got this table so you can see. It's just 6 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and I hope that doesn't break. So it's head up, Okay, it's eyes looking up at the ceiling, okay? The eyes up, turning up is going to stimulate the nervous system, okay? There's a lot going on here, okay? I'm getting some knee flexibility, okay? If they have a knee replacement, it's fine. They're getting feedback of how much they can push. They'll know, but it improves over time. This is super safe, okay? Hip mobility. A little bit of core, shoulder stability, wrist flexibility and stability. What about my ankles? Any mobility in my ankles? Yeah, and I can do it this way, okay? And it's stimulating the vestibular system, the vestibular nuclei in the vestibular system. So they're working on balance without directly working on balance. Very powerful move. Okay, and then there's the squat right there. There's the squat. Okay, repetition on that. TRX squat, or assisted squat, or Chris's anchor point squat. So holding on to TRX or some kind of a pole, and going into a deep squat, if they can. And they can. If you have them do, most likely, depending on who it is, if you have them do a bodyweight squat, they're probably not going to do it very well. They don't have the motor control or the stability, okay? But if you have them holding on to something, I guarantee they can do it. And that pattern of a deep squat, again, takes the cotton out of the ears so they can hear the music, so they can hear the music in their own body. A deep squat activates the psoas muscle, another great hip mobility, and it feels really good to them. Now, they'll lean back, like they'll really lean back, and that's okay. But try not to get them to read back. Try to have them just barely hold on to it. They'll say, oh, that hurts my knees. And you all know that if you have them stabilize with their hips by pushing on the outside of their shoes, they're like, whoa, I just went down. And they're like, that didn't hurt my knees. Okay, or you can push against their knees as they're pushing out against your hands. So, you know, it's a real, we're trying to get from, you know, we're trying to get them to do these two movements really good. The slide earlier, the squat and the hinge. And it really takes a lot of like motor control work for them to do that. Okay, butt backs. Just simply feet shoulder width apart and just practicing the hinge. Okay, same thing. I can push on the outside of my shoes to engage my hips, tighten my core, right? Make sure I get that full hinge forward, squeezing my glutes. Same thing going back to the squat. I want to get a sense of those hips articulating. Nothing earth-shattering here, is there? Nothing. Where's my... But I can't emphasize these movements enough. Now, again, there's so much more, but this is so good to have, or for you to have, or to really step. I mean, I think instead of like having the Fitbit count how many steps we're doing, to me that sounds like a waste of time. How about 10,000 hip six-point rocks, or 10,000 hip, you know, that's something. Enough with the 10,000, with the, I'll stop. Maria Montessori, Italian physician and educator, said the repetition of an exercise is an important step in normalization. Isn't that all we're trying to do, is to get back to kind of a normal way of moving? And I really liked what Phil said earlier. So this is Dick, and kind of a cranky attorney. 92. He died last year. And we had some great interchanges. Like I said, he was ornery, and when we first started, he goes, "God, you're so expensive. Why are you so expensive?" And then a week later, "I've damn near paid for your house." I said, "Look, Dick, you got 3 choices here. You can pay me, you can pay the nursing home, or you can pay the undertaker. You choose." And he shut up after that. In fact, true story, he went from 2 times a week to 3 times a week. Another thing is I kept telling him, "Dick, you got to do more things at home. You got to do stuff at home, not just when you're here at the gym." And he wouldn't. Finally, he came to me and said, "Paul, you're right. I need to do more stuff at home. What can I do?" I said, "Well, Dick, every time you walk by the kitchen sink, just stop, grab the kitchen sink, and do 5 full weight, body weight squats like we do in the gym, and then go on." And every time he said, "The kitchen sink, huh?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, that's what that's there for." He was a character. But so later in the later years of working with him, about the last year and a half that we worked with him, he had congestive heart failure. So he was getting a little weaker, but we were still working with him, short of breath, still working with him, going to the doctor's offices more often for checkups, but he kept coming. And, we knew there was some decline there, but he kept coming. He kept going to he was an attorney, I think I said that. He'd go to work every day still for half a day, still playing golf and coming to the gym. And one day we got a call from his wife, Helen. He said, "We just got back from the doctor, and the doctor said, don't come to the gym anymore. Doesn't want to have that stress on his heart. And so what can you say?" We said, "Okay, that's fine. If it changes, give us a call." So a week later, got a call back from Helen, and she was in tears. And she said, "Paul, I don't know what to do. Dick can't get Cody. It's your fault. Got Cody disease. I can't get out of the chair." He couldn't get out of the chair. He couldn't, he was really having a hard time moving functionally, or just even the basic needs. And she was just distraught. And she said, "What can we do?" I said, "Look, let's look at this, okay?" And this is where my why statement comes into play, because my why statement is to whatever I can do to improve the movement and the strength of older adults to compress morbidity that we talked about yesterday. I said, well, you can stay at home and get weaker and not have much of a life. He can come to the gym. We can get him back up to where that baseline was before he went to the doctor's office, what he had a week and a half earlier. He may put stress on his heart and may die as a result of it, but there's worse things than dying. But let's improve his quality of life. And the reality is we're not going to put more stress on him than it would be for him to get up out of the bed and get his clothes on and go do doctor's office and go to, it's just not going to, we'll do strength training still, but we'll do 5 reps or 3 reps. And we'll load him up, but not going to overstress him. So we did that. And it worked. I'm not kidding. Within a week, we got him back up to the baseline again. And he was going back to work, and he went and bought a new golf club that he could practice golfing with. And then kept going to the gym for another, about 4.5 months, 5 months. And then over the weekend, got a call from Helen saying he had passed. But we compressed that morbidity. And that's what we're doing. And this was just a great example of it. But again, going back to those movements, they're critical that we really, use those movements to enhance not only the strength, but mobility first. So, in summary, have a clear why statement. Have a strong conviction of why you're doing what you're doing. And then establish good motor control. Establish good movement patterns. So I want to close just with a quote from Tom Brady's strength coach. We can't let our bodies dictate what we can or can't do. We need to convince our brains to reclaim what we want to create. We want to create new realities. We want to age differently. We are in a really good place, and the future is really bright. Thank you.